When COVID lockdowns and restrictions began at the beginning of the pandemic, I remember feeling terrified that I would never see my elderly parents again. They were in their early 80s and in poor health, which made getting COVID for them dangerous. My dad has COPD and my mom has a heart condition, so I was afraid to visit and bring them COVID. They live 661 miles away from me in Atlanta, Georgia, while I live in Bowling Green, Ohio with my partner, my 3 dogs, and my daughter. In addition to feeling nervous about their health and isolation, as a professor, I was feeling uncertain and a bit wary about teaching online because I had never done it before. I had even joked to a few of my friends that my plan of retiring, never having taught online, was ruined. I felt disconnected from my students, from my friends, and from my usual support network. So I needed to do something to keep going. And I'm going to ask you some questions. Did you feel isolated right during COVID lockdowns? Did you feel uncertain? Did you feel the need to be connected to others during a time of social isolation and distancing? COVID brought into greater relief our needs for interpersonal connection. I'm Sandra Faulkner, and I'm a professor in the School of Media and Communication at BGSU. As someone who teaches and researches about communication and close relationships, I wanted to figure out a way to re-engage my students and myself. So I talked with my friend Wendy Watson, who is a gerontologist, about my feelings, and I asked if she wanted to collaborate on a project with older adults. I was thinking about my parents, I was thinking about my students, I was thinking about my research on inclusive pedagogical practices and how to engage students in an online classroom. Sure, we were going to be online, but that didn't mean that we couldn't find connection, build community, and reach out to others. So Wendy and I designed the Intergenerational Connections Dialogue Project to help ease social isolation for ourselves and for older adults in our community. We were going to apply class concepts for the public good, and we were also going to learn how to use Zoom for more than just class. We would use Zoom for conversation, for connection, and for fun. In this talk, I'm going to discuss the Intergenerational Connections Dialogue Project, which was a collaborative project, community engagement project, that involved students in my relational communication class and older adult students in a long-term care facility in Columbus, Ohio. The purpose of this project was to help dispel stereotypes and expectations that younger adults have about older adults. I broke my class into smaller groups of 4 to 5 students and then paired them with an older adult for conversation. We met 4 times via Zoom during the course of spring 2021. The choice of meeting over Zoom was beneficial because the residents at the long-term care facility were on lockdown. Many had not seen their friends or their family for months. And residents in long-term care facilities were particularly vulnerable to feelings of isolation because of the visiting restrictions, because many of them didn't have access to technology or know how to use it. Research shows that when young adults interact with older adults via technology, that their attitudes about those interactions become more positive. During the dialogue, students got to share their lives with older adults, and they got to hear older adults' perspectives on topics such as friendships, dating, marriage and love, children, intimacy, dying, and the importance of our relationships across the life course. I had students write reflections at the end of every dialogue and at the end of the semester about their experiences interacting with older adults and how they broke down some of their expectations and stereotypes that they had. And I want to share some of their observations and connections with you. One of the first things that students told me was that getting to know their older adults was a process. They had assumed kind of falsely that the first time that they met their older adult for dialogue, that the conversation was just going to go smoothly and that their older adult partner would just regale them with all of these stories. But, then they discovered that their older adult partners were nervous to meet someone new, just like they were, and that it took, a little bit of time. So talk by talk, they started to get more comfortable, and the conversation started to move, a bit more smoothly. The students started to experience positive attitude change as the semester went on. They had told me at the beginning, oh, well, this is just a class assignment. But then they started to, through the course of the dialogues and spending time together and talking, discover that their older adult partners were people, and that, gasp, they even started to look forward to the conversations and enjoy them. And one student even had approached me at the end of the semester and asked if we could do this project on a larger scale across the university. One of the ways that students enjoyed the conversations was when they realized that they had similarities with their adult conversation partner. They found out that they liked some of the same movies, they watched some of the same TV shows, they liked hanging out with their friends, and some even liked drinking beer. One student told me that when he was talking with his conversation partner, John, that he was surprised to learn, but pleased, that his conversational partner was an atheist and thought about death in some of the same ways that he did. And so he told me that he had a real new outlook on getting older as a result of that conversation. This sentiment was shared by many students. They told me that if you just spent time talking with a conversational partner, that there was surely something you would find that you shared. Students also experienced personal growth over the course of the semester. So many students told me that their older adult partners gave them advice that helped them to think about their relationships in new ways. So many of the adults told them that it was really important to maintain friendships, for example, and that it was worth spending the time. And so students told me that they now had new plans for reaching out to others, for making sure that they kept connected to those that were important in their lives. Another student had told me that she was feeling particularly stuck in her life, that she was on autopilot. She went to school, and then she went to work, and then she went to school, and then she went to work. But then she listened to some advice from her conversational partner, Yvonne, who told her this: you're young, you should do the things that you want to do. Even if others aren't going to do them with you, then you go and you do them by yourself. You don't want to regret not doing them later. Students did stereotype older adults as uninteresting, slow, boring, and different. But then through the conversations, what they realized and were kind of surprised and delighted to discover how wrong they were. Their adult partners had traveled, they told interesting stories, they had hobbies, and then they kind of, got past some of these, negative kinds of stereotypes, and then, started to realize that they could talk to their older adult partners like they talked to their friends. And they told me they were their best selves when they were with their friends. And one of my favorite stories was a student who told me that her dialogue partner, Anita, had confessed to her that she hated cooking. And not only that, she didn't know all the things about her grandchildren. So there goes that stereotype of the joyful grandma baking cookies for her grandkids. The most rewarding thing for me was to see how students' expectations were challenged with this project. They had, told me that they thought that this was just going to be some project, but then right through the course, they started to see their dialogue partners as people. They told me that older people shouldn't be treated differently just because of their age. And they also told me that they were learning not to use their expectations about people in their interactions. What this project taught me was the importance of communicating across generations, which is something we all can benefit from. I was delighted to see the connections that my students made with older adults. It was rewarding to see how they could take class concepts and apply them for the public good in our community. It was heartwarming to see them talking to people just like my parents and learning that talking to older adults was not only worth the time, but it was something that they should actively reach out and continue to do. The 3 lessons that we learned from this project were: 1, the importance of listening across age and difference and experience; 2, the benefits of connecting with someone not in your age cohort; and 3, the fact that we all need connection to ease social isolation and loneliness. So, why not strike up a conversation with someone from a different age group than you are? You may just find that you share a lot of similarities. You might like the same ball games, right? You might want to go to the movies together, all while drinking a cold one and talking about the most important things in our lives, our relationships. Thank you.